Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Fart Fetish Podcast once again. It's that podcast where we seek to find the answer to what is fart fetish? Where might it come from? How is it enjoyed? And what are the people like who have this fetish, as well as other fetishes too? We do this on every first Friday of the month, on almost all major podcast platforms, and at fartfetishpodcast.com. And if you happen to like fart erotica, well, I've got some of that on thefartcloset.com. That's my erotica website. You can support the podcast just by checking out all the free stories, captions, and so much more at thefartcloset.com. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Omar to the show. Omar is on the podcast today to discuss the potential intersection between fetishism and astrology. Astrology is often relegated by most to mere entertainment horoscopes and predictions, but Omar has found himself earnestly diving deeper into Vedic astrology to look at aspects like our predestination in order to help explain his fetish and reduce his own shame around it. Omar also shares about his personal life, his particular kink interests, and some of the popular media of his formative years that influenced his upbringing around farting. It's an enlightening episode, so let's jump right into the Fart Fetish Podcast. Thanks very much for being here, Omar. Why don't we start with a little about yourself and why you wanted to come on the podcast today?
Hello, my name is Omar. Basically, this fetish has been part of my life like since I can remember, but it's been all fun and games for me. Basically, it was more like growing up with wrestling and roughhousing with my stepbrother. It just became like like wrestling moves were became, I guess, like an opportunity to fart on me. So that's how I got into it.
Interesting. Yeah, the bullying aspect is something we're hearing a little more and more on the show. I think Master Jaden was one that definitely mentioned that in his origin story. You also talked a little bit about in your messages to me about this idea of astrology and connecting it to the fetish. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, so like last year is when I first discovered astrology. Like it started off with just like Snapchat and they have like some of the planets and their like signs on there, but once I got deeper into it and like looked at aspects and stuff, it really started revealing some stuff about like certain planets that talk about like sex, like Venus or Mars or Pluto, like and like also Uranus and Neptune could be involved as well. But when I looked at these aspects, it kind of like validated me when I like read some of the things it said because it definitely describes like my relationship to just like sex in the first place. So definitely pretty cool. I could like read some aspects if you want that I have that really kind of like explain some of the things that I have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be interesting.
So yeah, so it says I think this was like with Venus and Uranus, but the aspect says you certainly cannot handle being smothered or tied down in any way except maybe in the bed. So like definitely like something I experienced like in my first relationship, like my first serious relationship, like I immediately like asked for like that kind of aspect to be part of our relationship, like to not I'm not really a like a masochist in that aspect, like actually being tied up, but I guess like being smothered is part of the is what I can relate to. But yeah, that was an interesting one. And I know I saw like another aspect. It was like with a fixed star, which is like a constellation. And it said like I would be a better servant than a master, which was I found kind of funny because on in relation to the fetish, I only like am the receiver. I'm not really ever in the dominant position. So it definitely like applied to me very well when I read that.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And how do you see like you mentioned a bit about like um submissive leaning or submissive at least in fantasy. What does the fetish look like for you? Like what aspects do you enjoy? How have you I guess how, if you've experienced it, how have you experienced it? Or if you've fantasized, how have those what do those look like?
So yeah, like in my experiences, it's always been like with guys, really, like my guy friends. So like, and I remember actually the first time I experienced it was at daycare, and like, it was just like nap time or something, and somebody had farted, and I somehow like ended up like being near. like near the person. Like our cots were right next to each other, and I was like trying to smell it, I guess. And then like in elementary school, there was just this friend I had that was like a really talented farter, I would say, because they were like doing it like they could like fully do it on blast, like on command. And they were just like I remember having a play date with them, and I was like in my small apartment with my mom just there, and we were having a play date, and they were just like farting next to my head, and like I know my mom could hear this going on, and she didn't stop us, so it was just like it was a funny experience because like I had to move away from that school later on, but like that was like one of my best friends, and we had like many play dates, and I think that was like maybe the only time that happened, but yeah. And then growing up playing well, in like high school I played sports, and like the locker room talk was a little bit explicit. Like somebody mentioned like doing something to me like inappropriate, but I was just kind of like embarrassed because I've probably like in the back of my mind I knew like I probably would have liked what they were talking about doing. They were like saying like something like super dirty, and I was just like, okay, like that's like a joke to you, but to me that's that wouldn't be just a joke. But so basically like I've had like 5 or 6 people from my school basically just like um do it. Like I remember inviting a friend over as well and playing like a basketball game online with them, and like saying whoever loses has to take a like fart to the face, and me like being in the lead, like I was like, oh crap, I gotta throw this if I wanna like do this. So I remember like purposely like throwing the game just so they would fart on me. I mean, they were the type of person that would have done it anyway type of thing, but and they were like always farting around me anyway. But it ended up with just like kind of like it was kind of like a wrestling thing, so that kind of like got incorporated as well somewhere. Because I remember the first experience I had was with like somebody penning me in like my stepbrother penning me in wrestling, and he would just like do like a face fart. And also the other thing he used to do was like I don't know why, but he used to like grab my head and like intentionally like force it into his butt and then fart, and which was like that was like probably the craziest experience I had, because it was like one where like my nose hurt after, and my nose burned. I was like that was probably like the crazy experience I had with it. So that was like probably what left like the biggest mark on me for this fetish to this day.
Interesting. Did you say which of the experiences, or did you mention which experience was your like whether it be your first thought or your first run in with like farting as a concept at all, that was, I don't know, maybe something a little different than just, as it appears in movies, or like it's a joke or whatever. Like when did you first have that idea that this might be something different for you?
I remember like I mean, it kinda got out of hand whenever I started looking up on YouTube, looking up fart compilations and stuff, and then like, okay, this is I guess I kinda realized I was getting a different feeling than just, like, funny or gross, like, which is, like, the only 2 feelings people really usually would get from the fart. But, yeah, I just remember being on YouTube, like, searching videos of fart compilations when I was little. It probably was just on, like, a family computer too, so it was, like, I guess it was, like, pretty much, just like it was always there, but I like whenever like I found myself searching for them, like kind of craving them, then I kind of knew like, and it kind of led to a lot of shame as well with that, because like I was like I don't want to be looking this stuff up, but like I can't control myself, and I was like kind of unconscious of like this being like a fetish or a kink. Like I never really had any experience with that except for like of course feet is like something you know about as a kid, or and not as a kid, but like as a young adult, I guess I would say. You know people are into the feet thing. It's like a mainstream kink.
Sure. I think that is a consequence of the last decade or so, though, because I don't think anyone necessarily, maybe I could be wrong. I don't speak for everyone, but I think people in their 30s may be less inclined to say that feet were a thing. But in the last, I would definitely say, in the decades that passed, it definitely became much more prominently known. I always mention Tarantino because I think it's the most visible and mainstream example that people have pointed to many times and many different examples, that it's hard to argue. But yes, I do agree that if the did you how old are you? Did you say it in your intro?
I think I said I'm 22,
Gotcha.
and I guess I've had it since I was like 5. I remember that was when my dad remarried, and then I first met my stepbrother.
Gotcha. And that was the kind of the fart bullying was a consequence of having this stepbrother.
Yeah, right. The first time, like I think before that, I was in daycare and it happened before, so I can't really like attribute the whole thing to him. But yeah, the bullying domination aspect, which probably is like the main thing that does it for me, is like attributed to that relationship.
It is interesting how when when our lives seem to be, and I'm sure it's not the same for everyone, but when our lives go down a path of like, you had the experience in daycare, then you had a stepbrother that would bully you and farts were incorporated. It seems interesting. Maybe it's something to say about fate, in fact, that these things kind of tend to go together. It's not like there was one experience and then never again. Some people may have that, but I find it interesting that this kind of experience continued to follow you. It seems.
Definitely, like this, I've always been in like this same position where people just somehow end up like farting on me. Like it, I mean, also like I would kind of like I would unconsciously want to put myself in that position as well. Like I remember being with friends and just like wrestling and be like, oh, like you have to pin by sitting on the other person's head or something like that. But like as we're just kids, we really didn't know like what any of this like was really like enticing. But basically when I found astrology, like and I found that this was basically already as soon as I was born, this was already kind of like written, I was kind of more accepting of it. Before I had more shame towards this fetish. Like I was like trying to get rid of it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be in a closet about this fetish my whole life, like type of thing. But well, even before that, I kind of like came out to my girlfriend about it because she found out about it like secondhandedly without me telling her. So, but like for just loving myself more, like definitely the astrology helped because I just found, like, answers basically, like, that I basically needed that I didn't know.
Can you talk about, if it's all right to ask you about? Can you talk about what the experience of your girlfriend finding out? How did that turn out? Can you speak more about that experience?
Yeah, it was probably the most scariest, like, experience of my life because, like, I mean, you I didn't have control over, like, her finding out, like, I didn't tell her myself, so it was, like, way more scary. So, like, I was playing the game one day, and she was at my house, and she was, like, bored because I wasn't, I guess, like, giving her attention, so she decided to get on my computer. And it was like still like it was an old computer, so for some reason it was like dead, or it was like showing a picture from like a long time ago, but the picture was of like a Sit Crush video, and obviously she saw this guy with like his underwear sitting on somebody else's face, and she was like, "What the heck?" And I was just like, "I don't know what that was. That was from a long time ago." Like I didn't like fully admit to it at that point, but later, like, I told her because like, I kind of figured since her, like, brother was, like, a noxious farter that she would kind of, like, understand. So, it once I admitted it to her, she kind of, like, did it for me, like, but she was still shy about it at first. So, I'm glad she was open to it, like, after she found out, but before she was, like, kind of, like, or not resilient, but she was resistant to, like, doing it around me, even though she would tell me that she would have to.
Interesting. What is your feeling towards gender and farts? Are you like into both male farts and female farts, or is your sexuality both, or how do you identify yourself in that way?
So, yeah, that's, like, interesting question because, like, at first, like, I think it was connected just to, like, males, but I kind of, like, primed myself. I started watching videos on YouTube of it, and it was of like I remember the girl. It was a girl like that did this like talk show kind of thing or game show thing, and it was like, "Can I fart in your mouth?" That was like the question she had on the sign, and she was just walking around LA with it. And like that kind of like that was like the hottest video I found of like girls farting. So that kind of like sparked that interest in females for me. But and then I also found a YouTube video of like girlfriend farts on boyfriend like scenario. So then I started becoming like more interested in that side of it. But like in terms of like relationships, I'm like a straight male, but like I'll have like friendships with like guys who do this like without us being anything else. So that's kind of my relationship to it.
That's awesome. That's really cool. That's really cool. And you talked a bit earlier about the more or at least I implied from what you talked about in terms of astrology towards the more submissive leaning, but it sounds like you, and this is my assumption, that you maybe like a little more of the like softer dom. Is that correct, or do you like it all, or what would you be your um assessment on what you kind of gravitate towards in terms of pornography or what you would enjoy in a relationship or whatever?
So yeah, I mean, I remember finding like femdom videos. Like at some point, it was that was like one of the names of the video, like femdom farts or something. And that kind of I like the smothering aspect. I like the face hitting aspect of it. I'm not really into mouth farts that much. I think that's like kind of like the mainstream for like dominatrixes now. Like they kind of like do the mouth farts more. But I guess, like, everything else is fine for me except for that. I'm more of, like, a nose person than mouth or tongue, like
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, both in fantasy and in practicality in real life, I guess. I concur and like the nose aspect or the smell aspect. Definitely one that's strong for me. Is the smell aspect strong for you, or are there other aspects that you enjoy?
like, the smell, the vibration, like, I guess that would be the feeling, are probably the main 2 aspects. Cause like, I remember growing up, like, also, like, with, my neighbors, like, they would, like, smell their farts, like, whenever they, like, farted, like, I started doing it myself, I was like, "Oh, this isn't, like, that bad, like, this is cool." But so I guess, like, I kind of, like, get some relief from just releasing it too, like, so, like, I mean, I guess part of the fetish as well is just, like, my own relief, but I'm more towards, like, the dynamic between 2 people and just, like, being, like, either on my knees or on my back, like, or I mean, there's, like, certain positions I enjoy more, like, being, like, on my back, being on my knees, or, I guess laying down on my stomach as well.
Nice, nice. You mentioned to me, I'm not sure if you mentioned it here, but you talked about how astrology kind of led to a spiritual awakening for you. Can you talk a little bit more about? Um, I was gonna say what that looked like, but maybe what that felt like. What was that like?
Yeah, it was like a combo between, like, astrology and this book called The Power Now by Eckhart Tolle. It kind of, like, basically started what this thing is called is Kundalini rising, and it's, like, the, um the energy in the spine, like, activates and just, like, a burning sensation you get, and you feel like it's like an experience that you kind of, like, never forget your whole life. It kinda changes your whole life, and, basically, it started my journey on astrology because I was just like I was just wondering about more like esoteric knowledge, I guess, after that point, like because that was like more of an esoteric thing. Like it wasn't really an experience that is usually talked about. I mean, astrology, we know like sun signs, like oh, I'm a Aries, but that's not really like that's kind of like the dumbed down version that we have. So basically, that experience inspired me to just like deep dive, like, extremely, like, into any, like, self-help or self-discovery tool.
Nice. Does astrology have any? I don't know if the right word would be religion or mysticism or like uh, tenant connected to it, or like who studies astrology? I guess. I mean, I guess astrologists, but like, can you talk to me more about Maybe what are those misconceptions based on what we know about astrology, and what is the more true astrology?
Well, yeah, so I like found Vedic astrology, which is kind of tied to a religion, and it's like more lenient. Like it's Hinduism that's involved in that. And they just like it's more lenient versus like Christianity in astrology. But no, like Hindu astrology definitely incorporates religion into it, but I don't really follow it that deeply. But I do enjoy the mythology that they have, like with the they have a god attached to each star, or it's called a deity that they attach to each star, and it's definitely like just it's very helpful just for learning about like the person that has like they'll have the qualities of this like, or they'll have attachments to the mythological story. So it's like it's extremely in depth to the person as well. But for like over here, we really just have like we have more of like a how I would say, psychological attachment to astrology, like, oh, this person was born during this time while the sun was in this sign, so they're going to be more like this. But versus in like Hindu astrology, they're more like, oh, this person was born at this time, so they're going to be married whenever they're this age and stuff like that. So like it kind of like they also have the personality aspect of it, but they have something more. They're more predictive in the Indian tradition, but in the Western tradition, we kind of just like only analyze somebody's psyche, and we kind of just only look at the characteristics of the person over here. So yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. And what gives you the faith to like want to follow and dig further into astrology as like as a belief, or something to like hold as a, something I'm gonna say sacrosanct, but that may be too strong a word, but something that is a strongly held belief.
Well, like I guess it's just like I'm the kind of like a my own testimony for this because once I found out how much it helped me just be more myself, I was like, I just want to help everybody else be more themselves. Why not? Because like it's the only, I mean, that human design, cardology, like Chinese astrology, those all are just like aspects of yourself that you already have, but you don't really know of. Like I just use example like the other day of just like if you load up a game of Mortal Kombat and you have the character, you have the moves, but you don't really look at the move list, it's kind of like it's not like those moves are inaccessible, but you don't really know how to utilize them as well as somebody who would read the combo list or read the move list. So it's kind of like becoming like familiar with your move list in a way to make you more powerful.
That's very interesting. That is a very interesting. I've obviously dabbled a little in Ayurveda just as a consequence of my work, but yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying in terms of, I'm not a strong follower of like Ayurveda by extension the Vedic religions, but there is definitely a seemingly more wholeness to the idea, like a more completeness maybe to the idea of religions and spirituality that is far older than Christianity. So I definitely can see the appeal and the um, perhaps more scientific grounding, even if it's just a spiritual grounding in Vedic traditions. So that's very cool. That's very cool. I appreciate you sharing that, and helping give us some insight into the difference of what we may see as astrology and what the true, or what a true study of astrology may be.
Yeah, they kind of I started off as a Christian, so they kind of like liberated me from like those like thoughts of like, oh, I'm condemned to go to hell forever because I have this fetish or whatever. Like it kind of like has a more like yeah, like how you said, holistic, clear view of just religion as a whole. Like it's not really like a condemning or how do I say it? It doesn't have fear tactics involved as much as like Western religion does. So that's what I like about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned to me a research project that could potentially come about in regards to like more study of astrological elements, such as asteroids, for instance. Talk to me about like what does that mean? Like, are asteroids not? well studied? Like, are they a more mysterious element of um, astrology, like in need of further study? And if that's so, like, how does that go about? And then I'll get back to my next question.
Yeah, so I mean, like asteroids, the Indian astrology doesn't really use them at all, but they have been become more open to it now. Like they kind of are realizing that these like they like the stories. It's like it follows their tradition of like having mythology involved because asteroids are also like they have deities or stories connected to them. So for example, like Eros is like Cupid and Lust kind of, and that's one of the asteroids. So they name the asteroid basically based off of like the mythological story, or I guess the mythological story comes first and then they attach this to the asteroid because I guess that's what the vibe of the asteroid is. So like for Eros, like that would be a good asteroid to look at for somebody just for like romantic relationships or something. Like I know it's definitely like a asteroid that you can attach to love or lust, I guess. So that is just like an interesting study to do to see like where people's Eros is at in their chart and stuff. But I haven't really like found that to be like the end all be all. Like for example, like versus me looking at like where somebody's Mars and Pluto is at, like my Mars and Pluto are right next to each other. So that just means more it has more depth to like or it gives me a more deeper meaning than just like, oh my arrows is here. Because like Mars and Pluto are basically in a they're like in a synergistic relationship. So like basically Mars is like your sex drive or like your the pursuit. So my pursuit is related to like taboo things. That's what Pluto is. So that's like I like delineating more with like the aspects of planets rather than asteroids, in my opinion.
Interesting. If people wanted to get involved in this kind of research project, how would that happen? How would that occur?
Well, I know there's like a bunch of apps that allow you to like I know CoStar allows you to look at like people that are your chart friends or like have certain similar placements than you. And also like any astrological database like AstroSeek, you're allowed to look up like what aspects celebrities have or something or people online have. But like I would just say for yourself, if you do it, you can just like put your information in and just see if you have these similar like any relationship between Mars and Pluto or any relationship between Venus and Uranus or Venus and Neptune and stuff like that. Cause like that's gonna be like it's gonna be a testimony for like this being basically planned like before. Like you basically added this experience to your repertoire before you even came here because Indian astrology does talk about like karma and reincarnation and stuff. So like basically you had a karma to fulfill, and therefore you decided it was a good time to incarnate whenever these planets were having this relationship between each other. So I definitely just like seeing like people like realize that oh we all have the same karma or we all have the same desire.
Interesting. I heard something that it made me think. The belief and the idea is we choose our point of inception, like we choose the point in which we want to come into this planet, based on the, I mean, obviously not we consciously, the people that are here on earth, but our cosmic being chose the planetary alignment, time, position, and chose to incept into the world at that point.
Yeah, because I mean, like energetically, basically, is what they said. It pertains to like the energy on that day like, was what attracted you to come here. So I don't know if it's specifically that you saw Venus was in retrograde and you decided, oh, I need to learn about this. Like, I guess it's kind of like, let me see, like, so it's like a class is available and you want to sign up, that kind of thing. Like the what's in what it's like a class is available each day because every day the transits are different for the planets. So it's like if you come on a certain day, then you have these classes or whatever that you can do during this lifetime. Because after that original day that you were born, like there's a progression that happens. Like So like 20 days later, the planets will move, and you'll be living that out in your 20th year of life. So that's also another interesting aspect because um like I wonder if like that is all planned as well. Like, oh, you first saw that you would have to deal with this stuff later in life as well, or if it's all just connected to the original day.
Interesting. It's all very, very interesting. Getting back to the fetish a little bit, would you say you're you're pretty public about it? Are you fairly private? Do you like tell people if sexuality comes into a conversation?
So like I've like definitely don't say anything to people about it. Like I've been like before my girlfriend, like I've been completely like quiet about it, and like even like to the people who did it the most to me, like I wouldn't tell like the people that I've had the experience with, like, oh, like that was something that actually I have a fetish for. Like, would you do it again? Like that would probably just completely shut down the entire operation. I probably wouldn't be scared to come out of my house after that. But like in terms of like my I have like a separate account and everything for even like watching the stuff. I'm on Reddit, like that's the only thing that is basically public about it, but it's not like I have any friends from my hometown on that Reddit or on that Twitter account, so not really public.
Gotcha, gotcha. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. How would you say your well, first of all, like your own self-image, but then in relation with your connection with other men your age, like how do you feel about that, or do you have any commentary on that?
Well, I mean, like people my age are more like I mean, like I know that people my age like know a little bit something about astrology, so they kind of like know a little bit about themselves, but I'm kind of a more like I'm like deep diving into like the mysteries of like this entire science, and I'm more of like a like I've put all my friends in my database and stuff. So like I see all my friends like whatever their card for cardology is or whatever their star for Indian astrology is. So like I kind of just like I don't feel contempt, but I feel like I'm better at like deciphering the mystery in the sense that like I'm more involved with like occult sciences than I think anybody that I relate to at my age or any even men or female. Cause I have like more female friends in the end of the day. Like I I guess I just relate better to females, which there's something in astrology that says that like, oh, you'll have an abundance of female friends that will bless you, this and that. Like so it's like I already basically agreed to have more female friends too.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. You talked a bit about feeling like people in astrology are probably a bit more aware of themselves, or at least that's the idea I parsed out from what you said. Talk to me a bit more about that. Like why like I agree with you, and I have a theory, but why do you think that is? Why do you think people who look into astrology may have a better sense of who they are more than the average person perhaps?
Oh yeah, that's a good question because like I know that I just listened to the song and it was by B.O.B. and he said something like, what do you do when you don't think when you don't know it's a game? And then he said hate the creator. So like basically like I'm not superstitious, but at the same time, like it's more of a science side I take to astrology than a superstitious side, or a like there's some astrologers that are kind of like woo woo, I would say. And that's like not the type of astrology I practice, but I'm more of the type that will say like, this is your weakness. Why don't you like like become conscious of this, or this is your strength. Why don't you like, take advantage of this type thing? So I think people that use astrology, if they use it for the like right, if they use it the right way, it's just a tool. It's not like it's like a it's not like it's like a, it's, I'm not superstitious about it being like, oh, you were born on this day, everything's already good for you. You don't have to do anything for the rest of your life because you already have these placements or whatever. But it's more so of like a timing thing. How do I say it? Like yeah, it makes you take opportunities more consciously, I would say.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, there's a lot in my like in looking at Ayurveda and things. It there's a lot about I would say like an alignment and knowing necessarily what's for you. Like, I think there's an idea like all people are the same. Like our biologies are mostly the same and this and that. And that I think Ayurveda and I think the Vedic tradition in general tends to not believe that we all have a certain, whether you say vibration, certain body chemistry, both. Like we all have certain things we respond to, and certain people shouldn't, consume certain things or shouldn't, or if they do, it'll put themselves out of balance or in a rhythm of which their body wasn't meant to be. Like you could do that. You could do whatever you want. It's not going to kill you to eat something that's not like within your like body vibration, but it will put you out of balance. And I think that's one of the more main ideas of Ayurveda and Vedic traditions in general is the idea of being in balance for your body.
Definitely, because I think balance is the only thing that we should strive for. Because I think that like Western astrology like kind of takes it to the extreme of either they give you love and light or they give you like dark stuff you don't want to hear. So like I think that I mean Vedic has more clarity and like they'll say like they'll just make it like crystal clear for you what you should and shouldn't do. It's not like you have to follow this thing or you have to like live by this for like by law. So definitely feel like Vedic is good for that.
Absolutely. And to go back to my previous point, I agree with what you're saying. And to go further, I would say that people, it depends on how they use a thing that they gravitate towards. So in this sense, astrology or Vedic tradition, if I think a lot of people will gravitate and glob onto these things as a distraction for doing hard work about themselves. And it is, no one's perfect, no one is set. Even if you have the perfect whatever alignment, your life is still going to have some kind of problem or strife or whatever. The realization and the working on ourselves with whatever positive movement that we go towards. I mean, I'm sure some people can get great things out of Western religions like Christianity or whatever, but it's how you go into them. If you're going into them with an actual mindset of self improvement, or if you're going into it with a mindset of distracting yourself from the hard work you need to do. I think this is a anecdotal example, so I can't say this is true for everyone, but I believe it's true for many people who like are alcoholics. They go from an addiction to alcohol to an addiction to Alcoholics Anonymous. They get essentially addicted to the meetings rather than like dealing with the work of why I'm an alcoholic, why I need to consume, or why I need to uh, get drunk to the point of losing myself or hurting people or whatever the case may be. They choose to use the perhaps good intentioned class or art or religion or whatever teaching and turn it into a distraction for the interior work that must be done. And I know I talked a little too long for probably something that could have been condensed a lot easier, but essentially that's the idea. The if you use astrology as a distraction, then you're not going to get anything really out of it. It's not just astrology. There's many things like this. But if you go into it with a mindset of self-improvement, how do I use this as a tool to make me the person I want to be? I think you can have a much different perspective and a much different use of these very useful tools in our life.
Yeah, I like the positive like influence that Snapchat had on it. It was like I saw the potential of like improving myself immediately after just looking at what it said about me on Snapchat. And like when I mean I don't think a lot of people even use Snapchat like that anymore, or even use the astrology like compatibility or anything of that nature on Snapchat. But like, if people were to like kind of break out of like the "I am this sign" type of mentality and like try to evolve from like to the higher version of that sign, then I think we would be in a much better place as a whole. Because I know that Western astrology has popularity, like that is not really too much of it has notoriety that's not like essentially like positive. Like most people assign like Aries to being angry and a crybaby and stuff like that, like the usual like stereotypes. But that's like something that is like I think we're starting to break out of. Like all the cool kids like know their like zodiac sign or whatever, and they know like they know a little bit about astrology, but at the same time, like if they aren't really using it as like how the tool's supposed to be used, and yeah, it's definitely not for the right purpose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Would you say you grew up, or do you remember any instances of media that you grew up with that had farts in it, whether it's like a small piece of it or whether it was a larger focus of that content?
I was fixated on the fart face or the face fart emote in Fable 3. Like it was spammable. Like you could just over and over again spam the same emote. And I played this. I was only able to play this game with my stepbrother. So like I was just all like you could just get the. I would get the feeling just from like somebody doing to this me on the game. Like so, definitely that was like a huge like influence to where like then after that I could have seen myself then watching like animated fart videos and stuff like that. So and in terms of like movies, like there was this movie called like Unstable Fables, Three Little Pigs, and there was just like one instance where like the bully sits on the wolf's face or whatever. It's like a pig, and like they're in the bathroom. It was just the same like dynamic that I've dealt with my whole life. So I just kind of like I felt some type of way about seeing that on the screen. It was probably when I was like 11 or 12 or somewhere around that age. So I was able to know like I was like I knew that like this was something that I was going to gravitate towards like at that age because basically like the movie kind of set the tone for like what or it kind of like revealed to me what it was that I kind of enjoyed. It was just like the bully was just like being himself, like being an alpha, I guess, and then he was just bullying the loser or whatever. And that kind of like I found myself being infatuated with that whole dynamic after that.
Yeah, it's always interesting when there are aspects that maybe touch our fetish a little closer like that. And there are a couple instances of cartoons or TV using that when it happens when someone is a character, an animated character is sitting on someone's face or near it, there usually is a tendency to do the fart sound. And they're not thinking too much about it. I don't think they don't make too much of it usually in the cartoon, but for people who have this fetish, for people who see that and have an interest in that kind of activity, perhaps it I think it can set off in a different way. That's why I often wonder if the fetish is always or more generally inborn in people who have the fetish, because a lot of people are going to see that scene in Nickelodeon TV or Disney, whatever. These shows have definitely had those scenes, but not everyone that sees that has become a fetish. I think arguably, I think I'm sure more people have seen it than have become fetishes, is what I'm trying to say. So I wonder if that gives more idea to the idea that the fetish comes about in people who are in some way chemically or spiritually drawn to this, maybe genetically drawn to this fetish. Do you have any thoughts about that for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Like I know that my attraction to this fetish is probably like very rare. Like I don't think I've found anybody in my hometown that enjoys like this fetish the way that I do. So like I know that we all grew up in the same time of like during this era of like Nickelodeon. Like I know that kind of had some inappropriate stuff on there too. Like that was kind of like the the kind of not dark humor, but kind of they got has some inappropriate like content on there, I guess, like with farting. But I know that we all grew up during the same time, and I just had this different feeling whenever I was around like that type of content versus somebody that doesn't think about it after it's done or thinks like doesn't think of it as like more than just funny or gross. So definitely.
Absolutely. There's an Angry Beavers episode where there's like farts being used as a revenge, and it's not explicit. They don't really show anything, but it is heavily implied as a revenge like story. So there's not only a conclusion with farting as the like climax, as it were, but also this buildup, this foreplay, as it were, to this occurrence happening. So that episode specifically is almost one of the more, I don't know if the writers had a fetish at all in that case. There's nothing explicit that would give me that idea other than the fact that there are farts in the episode. But yeah, I'm curious about that. It's just interesting how that was almost a, you could, if you put that more explicitly and had it on Pornhub, it could have been porn for many people. I think the build up and the conclusion, I think, would be satisfying to many people in a more adult context, I'm sure. But yeah, I find that interesting when these shows do kind of reach out to that demographic, whether it's intentional or unintentional.
Yeah, because on YouTube when I watched compilations, it included just scenes, cut scenes just from like Sandlot or Scooby Doo or like TV shows that were just normally like shown every day. So it's kind of like I don't know, like it feels like it's just surreal to be like able to find, I guess, a sexual attraction and something that wasn't meant to be like sexually attractive. It's just like a deep down feeling of like I kind of like it started off as a deep down feeling of disgust for me because I was just like, wow, I can't believe I find this stuff attractive. Like, this is something that people think is just funny or this is just gross and funny. But for me, it's something more that I can't really explain or I can't control.
Absolutely, absolutely. In that vein, would you say you enjoy having this fetish, and what are your feelings about it more broadly?
Now that I've like become to terms with it, like before, like 2 years ago. So I guess like growing up, like I always felt more of a like I had to not be my entire self around people because I knew like um these thoughts weren't just something that I basically had control over. Like, for example, being in school, my teacher just bends over to help one of my classmates. Like, the thought pops up in my mind. I'm just like fighting against my mind. Like, don't do that. Like, don't go there with just something as normal as somebody just bending over. But like, it kind of now became like a thing where it's just like I kind of laugh at it. Like I've taken it. I'm more lighthearted towards like having it instead of like feeling doomed or feeling despair because of it or like or being a victim of like my fetish. Like now it kind of became my um I wouldn't say like my strength, but I can use like overcoming this obstacle as my strength, I would say.
That's excellent. That's awesome. Do you consider the fetish a major part of your sexuality, or just another aspect of your, I don't know, toolkit's probably not the right word, but your fetish, your sexual enjoyment?
So like I guess whenever I was like in middle school and like we kind of had to have that like so sixth grade type thing. So I remember in fifth grade there like I had like the let me see actually. It was third grade actually. Like I remember first seeing like the teacher I would have in fifth grade and she was like probably like she's probably the youngest teacher there and stuff and like everybody would fantasize about her. I would hear and stuff. And, like, I think that like, fantasy started off as just, like, purely as far as and then it, like, led to, like, other things, but then I started, like, when we started watching, like, actual, like, Pornhub in, like, middle school, that was, like, the age of coming to age for me in my area, like, 6th grade was, like, when you had to, like, talk about that at the table or the lunch table and stuff, like, it was kind of like a joke, but it was also, like it was like the talk of the table type of thing, and I was like I was able to explore like what kind of like porn I would watch, and it kind of it didn't have farts in it, but it also just had like I guess it had butt stuff in it. Like it would be either like reverse cowgirling or doggy style. Like that, I kind of more attracted to those types of like porn videos instead of like traditional missionary type videos and stuff that people probably enjoy.
Nice. Nice. That's very cool. Do you feel like there's something the fart fetish gives you that other kinks don't, or other fetishes or other sexuality might not?
Um, it gives me like a sense of like I guess like at the beginning of the episode I mentioned like it was all fun and games for me at first. It's kind of like making me like let my hair down, I guess, in terms of like figuratively speaking when it comes to like sex because like if a girl like farts around you, like it's not really a sex thing, but like it can be sexy. So but it's like it's kind of like a dirty joke that's like, oh, like you're teasing me type of thing. Like, but I see it as like it's like a it's like a how do I say? It kind of like just binds me more. It makes my relationship like more have a stronger bond, I would say. Like I would have a stronger bond to somebody. Like being able to have them fart for me is more intimate than I think anything else. Or just like any fetish, you become more intimate with your partner through doing stuff that you guys like. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't think anyone said it quite like that, but it makes me think of the um really the paramount importance of communication. I think that's really the kind of key takeaway of really all of this. I mean, we talk about fetishes. I've talked about poly on the show. There's and kink as well in a more general sense. And I think the defining factor that makes the three of those, and I'm sure there's other aspects as well, um I think more appealing than a general like vanilla monogamous relationship is is the communication, is the level of openness and connectedness with your partner to the point where you can share a secret fetish or share a desire or a need for um I don't know, sexuality outside of your partner. You know, you talked about connecting with guys to do like fart meetups or fart play. You know, I'm not saying that's polyamorous. I'm just saying it's a similar idea, I guess, as it were. But I think that that level of communication is what is um, missing, I think, and not encouraged in a lot of quote unquote normal standard monogamous connections, which is weird. It's weird that I feel like we like to, as people, like to talk a good game about being open and honest and authentic and communicating with each other. It's a everybody wants that. They say they want it. I think when it comes to doing it in practice and putting ourselves into that vulnerable position of admitting something hard or admitting something difficult, I think people would rather not do it. It ties back into the using astrology or using religion or using AA as a distraction. It can, if you do the work and actually dig into the material, then it can be helpful. If you just show up because you have to or whatever, and you're just trying to distract yourself from the hard and difficult questions that you should be asking yourself, then you're not going to get anything out of it. So yeah, the communication aspect really, I kind of hold that as like, this is the defining thread of what like alternative relationship pairings, alternative sexualities, what is most appealing about them. And maybe it's just me, maybe other people find other aspects about them appealing, but for me it's that level of communication, it's that level of there's nothing I can't tell you because you're not going to judge me, or if you will judge me, it'll be in good faith. Judging is not in good faith, but like if you joke about it, it'll be in good faith. Like I've had friends joke about the fart fetish with me. Mark coming on the video game stream and asking questions, and being lighthearted about it as well. It was really appealing, and I think that level of communication with our partners, with our friends, it may not be for everyone, but I think that level of communication, at the very least with close partners, is definitely the most important thing for me. And I would imagine and hope that it's the most important thing for other people in their, whether it be monogamous or poly or whatever pairings that they have.
Yeah, and I was just like reading somewhere it was like this is the best fetish to have if you find someone who loves you or just like who has that mutual respect for you because like if you like can't find somebody that you can like be a kid with or like stay young with, then it kind of like takes away from like the meaning of like what I mean, society like calls love a lot of different things, or they use that term for like a lot of different things, but like just us being like we can still be bros and still have like fart fun or whatever. Like it doesn't have to be something that we label as serious or like have to take it out of proportions just because it was like an experience that we both enjoyed. Because I know there's some people that enjoy just like farting on other people and they're not and totally like part of the like they don't have to label it as a fetish for themselves. They just like enjoyed the time that they had in that moment. So like I know the people that like have done it to me, like they weren't it could have just been one time. Like if they had fun and I had fun, then I don't see the problem with us like just moving on. And if it ever comes to that point again, like just being like, I don't know, just being completely like honest with like what we experience or what we want to experience. Because I personally like I wouldn't really like go back and contact the people that have like done it to me and like in my childhood days or like my high school days, but just because like it was an experience I was meant to have maybe just that one time. It wasn't really meant for a repeat experience. Like, because if I will like hold on to those for like, I'll never forget those memories of having those experiences, right? But like at the same time, if I'm holding on to it and like wanting to chase that same experience again, it kind of like defeats the purpose, and it's kind of like ungrateful of me to just go and like want to come back and have that same experience again because it's not gonna be what I expected to be. Like my expectations probably gonna let me down at the end of the day. So I'm just like grateful just to have the relationships I've had with just like girls and guys with this fetish because I mean today like we kind of like have to like I don't know be careful with our intentions and relationships because I don't want to hurt somebody just by being like too aggressive with like what I necessarily want. It might not be what somebody else wants as well in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. That was really, I can't think of a better way to close out. And we are coming to the end of this. I really can't thank you enough for coming on and talking as much as you did about astrology, about the fetish for yourself, and other topics as well. It was really, really intriguing and interesting to get an insight into your mind. I have one more question for you, unless you had something you wanted to add or something you wanted to ask.
Um, I was just gonna talk about my like original fart models that kind of got me into the fetish because I know that like back in the day, like there was the now the market has grown for this fetish. Used to be like almost no content for this fetish, or I wouldn't say it was no content, but these people like are like the pioneers, I would say, really for this fetish. Like they started making this content probably back in like I know of Say Crush that they started back in 2000 or something like that. But yeah, like the fart models that come to mind when I like think about who started this for me, like some of these people are like straight couples or they're like lesbian couples, but or they're like there could have been like a straight sub and then straight master. Like with Will the Farter, I know that him and Chase were like buddies, but they often had a lot of videos that I enjoyed. We had Goddess Amira, and she usually like made a lot of videos. Like she probably had the like most videos I've seen on the fetish, like when I first started watching them. And Kelsey Obsession, of course, is like another like she was on Fart Fantasy, I think. That was like the website that she said her husband ran, and that was like where I could find a lot of my content back in the day. And then there was like Dune Feet, which I don't know if a lot of people know about. It was just like a lesbian dominatrix group, and they had some good fart content as well. And I can't think. I already said Sick Crush, and I think Arctic Farts too was another good one as well. I don't know if you remember his videos, but those are some like some old fart models I can think of. But like today, like I mean, with OnlyFans being the culture now, like I have to be like conscious of like these people who are trying to charge me for like one video because I never bought clips whenever that was a thing. Like that was probably why I didn't have as much access to like the fetish because I didn't have like a job to buy clips and stuff. But um like today though, like people's like OnlyFans and like fan centros are like really thriving with this fetish and like they're kind of like able to monetize it more, but I know some of them are on this vid that are like pirated or whatever. But today, like the people that I see is like some of the top fetish creators like that I enjoy are English Leather Master, Goddess Monet, Natasha F. Sick Crush is like revamped their entire website. Um, Kitsy Vixen is like relatively new. She hasn't been on the scene before. And Natasha F and Master Max. Those are like the people that I probably look at the most when it comes to looking for porn for this fetish.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, I definitely recognize some of the names you mentioned in the past. I think Victoria mentioned Natasha F on her interview, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Dune Feet's an interesting one. I'm not sure how integral Dune Feet's content was in terms of like realistic farting or whatever was going on there, but it was definitely hot for sure. It was definitely an enjoyable clip for store. Yeah, I grew up on some of the Dom models I can think of that I grew up on were like Sienna from Anaconda and Brutal Alzina. She came a lot later than Anaconda, but she was definitely in there. And now I'm watching a lot of like Kelly Shamrock. There's another creator on Clips for Sale, Tori Moore. Um, yeah, it's hard to find. I find it hard to find good domination content or good domination creators. There's a lot of creators doing it, but not so much quality, at least in terms of what I'm looking for, anyways. But yeah, the I was going to ask you, what do you feel about the OnlyFans model as a consumer? Do you find it's a good connection with a creator in terms of like communication and what do you feel about it more broadly?
I recently just became open to like um communicating with the model because I found like this new person, like her name's Farting Lena, and she posts her stuff on Reddit and stuff. But she posts a lot of free content, which is cool because like you don't really see a lot of people just posting their farts on Reddit or on Twitter as much as like she does. But the thing is though, like when it came to like just buying like a OnlyFans subscription, like and buying a custom video, like I don't really think that those have as much value as what they're offering just like overall. So in my opinion, like if I'm subscribing monthly to something, like that can mean you're making 3 videos a month for one creator for $10, or that can mean you're making like a video every day for another community, another creator. So it's just like it varies so much that it's just like you gotta be like, I can only subscribe to like 2 or 3 creators a month because a lot of people don't really have that much content being uploaded. But like Sid Crush that uploads 2 videos a day, that's fair. There's like 13 a month. Um like some people don't even post twice a week, so and they have like the same price for their subscription. So it's kind of like the relationship that so for the person that responds to like and you get to converse with like and they have like a cheap subscription, like I think that's pretty cool, but I don't really get too much benefit from like fart chatting, I guess. Like I think I used to do that back in the day, actually, like with virtual avatars. I used to be able to like chat with people and like talk about that stuff with the avatars, and like there was like I would say like I wouldn't say there was like there were just some freaky people on there, I would say, like that you could just talk to while you were just like in the chat room with them, like with your avatars, like dancing, whatever. There was some like furniture that you could use that was kind of like had some explicit animations or whatever, but I think that gave me more satisfaction than just chatting with somebody on OnlyFans today, because it's not really anything besides just like us just exchanging words.
Interesting. Interesting, and interesting that you say that about, I'm not sure what application that was that you were talking about, but, uh, it seems like, it seems like well, I've always thought that the, younger generation would go into, like, maybe more virtual experiences with the resurgence, or no, not the resurgence, the growth of VR, but apparently it's not even that. It doesn't seem to be that. Uh, if people aren't that excited about VR, maybe it's yet. Maybe the technology hasn't caught up. Like the people who are like VR are into it, but that's a smaller group than I would be a majority of people. And then without a majority of people, it's going to be harder to see like this smaller segment of fetishists getting into it. Like I've seen VR content on like Pornhub or this vid or whatever. But I think I took an assumption that maybe it would be a bigger thing, and maybe it will, maybe in 10 more years or 20 more years or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting to think about those experiences in terms of what people have already done in the past with even more limited technology.
Exactly, because like I was on the site I was on was IMVU, and you could have like a avatar, and you can have like a room with furniture. You can have sex on basically. It's kind of like it was kind of like Sims, but a little bit more like customizable, and it was definitely like what I used to do like in my free time mostly was just sit on IMVU and talk to people. Even though I probably was like way too young to be on there, but it was definitely like something that like I was able to like explore the fetish a little bit on there just because or just sexuality like as a whole, because there was just people on there doing stuff like I never did like Omegle or any of that stuff, or Chatterbait or stuff like that, but it was kind of like it had those aspects of it like incorporated into the virtual realm, or I would say.
Nice, nice. I remember IMVU. I think I thought of it maybe more as a what they would call today as like a metaverse, but like I thought it was a more like virtual avatars walking around in a virtual world. But the way you're sounding it is a little more chat box focused.
Yeah, I would be like I would have friends actually that I would like join their rooms like daily or whatever, and they would have a lot of people in there, and it would just be like a party kind of thing. And some people like go to like certain rooms and stuff, and do other things. But another like site that I was like usually on was called Mees, and it was less popular, but like my stepbrother basically introduced me to that. I think he introduced me to both of those websites. So yeah, I was pretty young on there, but I definitely was like in those rooms chatting it up.
Nice, very cool. What do you think in a similar vein? Maybe what do you think is going to be the future of this fetish, whether it be for yourself or the fetish at large, or both?
I could see more people like meeting online, because I know people are like looking on like Fat Life or whatever, and they said they're scared to talk about this fetish because this is not the fetish people usually explore in Fat Life or any other dating app. So like I could see like I know that they're on Pornhub, they advertise like find farts near you. Like if that were an actual thing, like that would be actually insane to like experience that in the real world, because a lot of like I was saying, like I like to keep it light. I like to just have fun with it. So but at the same time it depends like how far I'm willing to go with the person. But um Yeah, I think that if it was like a lighthearted or just like a it could start off as just getting to know somebody and like just meeting up for like a fart date, whatever. I call like somebody that you like exchange fart with like a fartner. So like even I could create an app just for like just by the idea of like partnerships or whatever, just exploring like different dynamics within farting with other people just as a way of companionship because I see as like as we get into like the OnlyFans like era, it's more like there's more findoms and stuff on there, and it's less of a like companionship. It's more of like give me money type of thing, and I don't know. I don't like the way that's going, but I think that that's having its era right now, so we can move forward into a more like there's going to be no celebrities in this fetish. It's going to be more like I would guess there would just be more community. I would say.
Wow, that's great. I definitely hope you're right about that. I definitely do hope it goes in that direction. I think that's definitely part of the hope for this show is lowering the taboo, making this more commonplace will help bring normalization, not maybe not even normalization. It maybe will bring the appeal up for more people. Therefore, that means more as it were competition in the farter space because more people may be interested in doing this than um, doing it for money. To be more clear, as what I'm saying is, there are a lot of people because there are so few venues relatively to get this. That is to say, few fart models, whether male or female. There are not as nearly as many people doing this than that would if it was more mainstream and more people could know about it and know that they maybe enjoy it. I'm not saying it's going to be like everybody's going to join the fart train, but it's very possible that um the taboo, the stigma, the um it's a lot of pressure right now. There's a lot of like, if you find out about this fetish, I'm dead. I'm ruined. I'm this, I'm that. And I feel like the more that the fart fetish can enter a mainstream conversation, a mainstream, as it were, zeitgeist, the less likely that is to happen. It's almost like trying to throw up a shield against this idea that as soon as someone hears that someone has a fart fetish, they're done for with that person, with that company, with whatever. My hope is to kind of it's not the right analogy, but to like land on this grenade, jump in front of this grenade to try to prevent that from happening if possible. Like I'm not saving the world here. I can't tell you if it's going to work, but the hope is by trying to get this show more popularized and known to more people that the next time a fetishist has to share or needs to share or wants to share about the fetish, it's not going to be a fatal mistake.
Yeah, because when I was in a relationship with my girlfriend and after I revealed it to her, I had the fear of like her sharing with other people after we broke up that oh like or just her family, but it's just like that fear of like oh like everybody's going to look at me as a weirdo now because somebody knows about this. Like I had the same dynamic with multiple guys too. I don't think it would be weird of them to even to mention it to somebody like oh we were having like a wrestling match or whatever and like I saw it after I farted on him. He got like aroused or whatever. Like that's not something you usually hear guys really gossip about. But it's just like a fear that I had just because I just had that part of myself hidden from everybody. So it was just like if it ever were like yeah, like how you said, like if this comes out, I will die because it's something that like I hold deep within inside that I can't really bring out in the like public domain because it's gonna hurt. Like when people say bad things about it or bring negativity towards it. I know that if I like shared this like fetish with like people I've like talked to every day, then they probably wouldn't look at me the same. But like at the same time, like if it was somebody that I had like a intimate, if it's not somebody I'm intimate with, like in just like a platonic sense, that I probably wouldn't share it with them anyway. So like the people that I've been intimate with platonically too, that I've shared the fetish with, like I wouldn't really be able to express like that I like it to them. I would probably still like I still am clever with it, like in the sense like, oh, I hope you don't fart on me or this and that. But at the same time, like I would be like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like being like clever with it to where the point where we don't have to like acknowledge that I have a fart fetish, but at the same time indulging in it. It's kind of like the ultimate equilibrium I would like to meet just in this fetish.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I like I said, I really cannot thank you enough for wanting to come on and talk to us about all of this. The astrology certainly was very interesting. Learning about you and the fetish for you was equally as interesting. And I really can't thank you enough for coming on, Omar. And I hope I get to talk to you again soon.
All right, thanks, Raj. You have a good day.
You too. Take care.